Hey YouTubers, I'm just going to make this video to answer some questions that I get a lot. So, dreadlock questions, obviously. A lot of common questions are with people who have just recently gotten their dreads, and I get a lot of questions about wax. I never ever used wax in my dreads. My boyfriend used wax at the beginning, but he regretted using the wax in his dreads at the beginning. In the beginning stages. I know a lot of people that have used wax and have regretted it immensely. They have a really hard time getting it out. It just collects all the dirt and gunk that you come in contact with every day. All that stuff is getting stuck in your hair from having the wax in there. Plus, if you get your hair wet, and the wax traps in moisture, if any moisture gets into your dreads, so then you can get molding problems, and it's just not worth using unless your hair type, you think that it's really going to help your hair type. But in my opinion, I would advise against using wax because it holds all the hairs in place, so you think they look better at the beginning, but it just slows down the locking process because your locks need movement and friction in order to tighten up. If you're putting all that wax in them, then you're not going to have that movement, and the knots aren't going to be able to tighten up the way they're supposed to. So I never used wax, and my dreadlocks are almost 5 years old. They're obviously very sturdy, completely locked up, so you don't need to use wax. Other questions I get: how do I maintain my dreads? In the beginning, now I don't really do anything to maintain them. I wash them once a week or once every 2 weeks. I use a residue-free shampoo. That is the key. You don't want all that stuff built up in your dreads. You don't want any kind of conditioning factors or just basically nothing artificial in your hair. You just want to go as natural as possible. Well, I choose to go as natural as possible anyway. Shampoo I use right now, I talked about this in another video. I do not recommend this shampoo. This is what I've been using lately because I wanted to try it out because it sounded really good. You know, sulfate, cruelty-free, no parabens, petroleum products, animal fats, alcohols, artificial colors, or artificial fragrances. So it sounded really good. I thought it'd be cool, but it makes my hair feel really brittle, and I honestly don't like the smell that much. It's red tea. I don't know. But it's Hugo Naturals. I don't know if you can see it. Hugo Naturals. I don't particularly like the shampoo. I do, however, like using Trader Joe's Tea Tree Oil Bar Soap. And they have a lot of different bar soaps there. If you want to try out another kind, I like the tea tree oil because it does help cut down on a lot of the oil, and it also helps with an itchy scalp if you have itchy scalp. In the beginning phases, maintaining your dreadlocks, I didn't use wax, so basically all I did was palm roll as needed every once in a while. I didn't palm roll. I never did the whole crochet hook method in the beginning. I just backcombed them to start them, and I mean, I'm sure they would have locked up a lot faster. I had a pretty rough beginning phases of my dreads, but they still turned out. Even if it's rough in the beginning, they'll eventually mature and whatever. So basically I just palm rolled. When you get loops and bumps, you know, in those stages like 4 months in, you'll start getting all the loops and bumps and stuff. And basically all I do, I have this new little baby dread. It's a few months old now. I have a lot of, because I had a lot of loose hair and I created a bunch of new dreads. This is like my biggest one out of the baby dreads. But it's actually 2 baby dreads I just combined today actually. I just, well, there was some loose hair too. It was a section of loose hair, and then 2 baby dreads, and I just braided all 3 sections together, and I just have a bead in just to hold them together at the point where they separate. But they were already starting to combine at the root, so I decided, you know, it would be better to have it a little thicker. So I'm letting them combine. So I just have a bead over it just to hold them together and sort out any bumps and stuff. So this is my method in the early stages. When you get the bumps and loops, I would put a bead over it, or you can use either hemp twine or embroidery floss, and you can just tie it around the dread where you want to start it, and then basically, okay, say I would tie that in a knot, then you're just going to wrap around the dread as far as you want. You can do just a small section if there's just like a little bump. Obviously take more time with it, make it look nicer if you want it to look nicer. Some people like the natural messy look, like myself, but basically you just wrap it around and that'll help. And just leave that in for like a month or for like 1 or 2 washes. And yeah, you could leave it in like a month. I wouldn't recommend doing it the first like 2 months you have dreads. When your dreads are really long or really young, I wouldn't recommend the beads or wrapping embroidery floss or hemp around them, because they need, like I said earlier, they need that movement and stuff. In the very early stages, they definitely need to be more free and just, you know. But after like a couple months of having the dreads, I would recommend using the beads and stuff. And it'll also hold in some loose hairs for you too if you're having problems with that. Like I said, I never really crochet hooked in the beginning. Maybe once I was like 6 months in, then I tried the whole crocheting, just like loose hairs, just to maintain some of that. But now obviously I don't maintain my loose hairs. I just let it do what it wants. Sometimes if I get big sections, I'll backcomb it into a new baby dread. But that's about it. I don't do any other kind of maintenance, just palm roll when they're young. Like at this point I don't need to palm roll them anymore. Palm roll, and if your roots are growing together and you don't want your dreads congoing, which is when they combine into a bigger dread, then just rip them apart. It's a lot easier to rip them when your hair's wet. So you basically just separate them by ripping them apart at the roots. Don't ever use scissors on your dreads because you can make big mistakes. You don't want the straight cuts. It'll look bad for one, and you don't want to risk cutting off a dread or cutting off a big section of a dread. So I would just advise against using scissors. I have had my friend who went to cosmetology school, I've had her use a straight razor to separate my roots a little bit. Once again, have someone else helping you so they can actually see what they're doing so they don't cut something they shouldn't be cutting. But you can just use that to slowly tear the little hairs that are connecting the dreads together. So that's something else you can do to separate your dreads when they're starting to combine, because you get that a lot when your dreads are young. They'll want to combine. Some of them you should let combine. I've let some of my dreads combine and they were better off for it because they need that thicker base at the root. Some dreads you might not want combining because they're on like opposite sides of your head. And like my boyfriend, he had a Congo of like 8 dreads and he split those in half, and now it feels comfortable because they were like on opposite sides. And they're still Congos, but they're not as big as they were, and they're separated to their right sides. So yeah, sometimes you need to separate them and they'll just feel better on your head. So basically just let your dreads do what they want. They know what they need to do. Just don't mess with your hair so much. Let them be and they'll figure it out. What other questions have I gotten? Shampoo, we talked about that. Lumps, bumps. That's a lot of my advice, is just let your hair be. Don't use wax. Use residue-free shampoo. I use a lot of essential oils on a regular basis for my scalp, if I'm getting itchy, or just for the scent. I like them. I use tea tree oil for when my scalp is itching. I like peppermint oil a lot. Patchouli oil and rosemary is really good for your hair. So yeah, my dreads are almost 5 years old. I'm really excited. I'm going to make a video when they're 5 years old. But yeah, if you have new dreads and you think that, oh, they're loose and they're coming out and things aren't going right, just stick with it. It takes time. Like the first 6 months are really rough, but it's totally worth it in the end. So just stick with it and do what's right for your hair. Everyone's hair is different. Different methods will work, you know, different for people, and you know, back combing's not for everybody, rip and twist isn't for everybody, wax isn't for everybody. I never used wax, so you don't have to. If you know, if you think, well, this website tells me that I have to do this and I have to use all these products. I never used any of those dread products, and I honestly think most of those companies are just out to get your money because they have certain products like, oh, here's another thing. When your dreads are young, you can use salt water and a saltwater mixture, just sea salt. Don't use table salt. Use coarse sea salt and water, and you can spray it on your dreads every few days. If you notice your hair getting really dried out, then you're overusing it. So just like listen to your hair. Some people might need to use it more often than others. Some people might only need to spray their hair with it once a week, but it will help tighten up your hair. But you know, some companies out there, dread companies, sell like locking accelerators and spray and stuff, and it's salt water. It's just something you can make at home for way cheaper, and you don't have to contribute to these companies that are giving bad advice. I mean, some of their products, I know their shampoos, people have used their shampoos and really love them. So, you know, just test out what you want, but a lot of those products you can make home versions for cheaper, and just, I don't know, you don't have to waste your money, and you'll feel good about doing it yourself at home. So yeah, seawater, sea salt mixture, it's good for your dreads also in the beginning stages. I don't use it anymore, obviously. And that's about it. So any more questions, comment below and I'll make another video if you have more questions about new dreadlocks or any kind of maintenance on dreadlocks. But yeah, don't worry you have loose hairs. Don't worry if you have loops and bumps and frizz, and that's all part of the dread journey. It takes patience and time, and then one day you'll be like, oh my god, my dreads are like down to my waist. How did that happen? But, but yeah, just stick with it, and comment below if you have any more questions, and I'll definitely keep updating and help you guys out. Love to hear from you guys.